My name is Tashara Halyard, she, her pronouns, and today's conversation is once again part of Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and we are so excited because we have some experts in the building with us. It's also part of what we call our She Matters series, which is a series of monthly webinars that we host all around issues that affect Black girls and that I guess get in the way, honestly, of their ability to thrive. We're trying to do a lot more strengths-based language and modeling. It's not all about eliminating disparities and getting rid of the bad stuff. It's about calling forward what we want to see in their lives. And of course, that is for them to be able to thrive. And so before we jump in, though, I do have a couple of housekeeping measures. Number one, we sent out an email today. Hopefully you all received it about summary citations in the PPS school board vote that is coming up very soon. If you don't know what summary citations are, Amy is going to drop a link in the chat. This is from a news article that just dropped last week. We've been doing some work supporting our coalition members, specifically the ACLU, on this topic. We had a webinar about it actually last year. This is something that really affects Black students the most. They put Black youth, Black and brown youth, disproportionately into the adult criminal legal system for minor misbehaviors that should be addressed, we say, within the school building. There has been a moratorium, and that is going to shift possibly this week, and we need your voices to sound off about why this practice needs to end and shift. And so Amy just dropped into the chat both the webinar, but also she will put the information to sign up if you would like to speak or join the school board hearing that is tonight at 6 p.m. So we are going to keep y'all busy today for sure. Okay, and before we get started with today's webinar with our experts, I want to see if Dr. Kathy has anything to jump in to share with us. Dr. Kathy is with us today, the CEO of Gwen's Girls. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I am here, and no, I do not have anything at this point to share. Just want to jump right into this conversation because it's so needed.
Thank you, Dr. Kathy. And we actually asked our Begala girls all about it. Begala stands for Black Girls Advocacy and Leadership Alliance, and they do a lot of work here at Gwen's Girls around advocating their civic participation goals, etc. And so we want to hear from them about teen dating violence. So I will ask for Amy to show us a bit of their spoken word.
The violence in our homes must be no more. It's a silent, fatal disease that locks closed doors. It's less messy than gun violence, but more so than blood. It's cleaner than a virgin, but less so than mud. It's complicated like rocket science, but less so than a knot. Self-defense comes natural, but still must be taught. She's hiding all her bruises like she's the one who'll get caught. Why didn't you leave? Why would you stay? That's somebody's daughter at the end of the day. A reflection of innocence, hurt by weaponized incompetence and violent sins. The door is closed, but never locked. To solve a problem, we first must talk.
I fell for every apology he fed me. Tears falling from the teary eyes of care. I love him. I always told him I love him. At least I thought I did.
Help. This is affecting my mental health. Help. I don't know where to turn.
You, Amy. We'll be hearing from our young people throughout today's series, throughout today's webinar, I'm sorry. It will be a series of spoken word pieces that really help to anchor their voices into this conversation, since we know it's all about our young people. So first, we are going to reach the point of the agenda about what we know about teen dating violence. How is it defined? How prevalent is it? How do young people define it, etc.? And so first, I think we're going to turn it over to Matthew. And Matthew, if you can give us a short introduction as well, we would love that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks everyone for having me. I'm Matthew Grayson. I am the supervisor of the educational facilitator program we have here at Women's Center and Shelter, and I'm supervisor for our men's BIP program. I've been with the Women's Center and Shelter for about 3 years. I started as an educational facilitator in our program. We work with city schools within the Pittsburgh area and outside of in the suburbs. But we go in and we give the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation I have is what I present to high schools. When when I was an education facilitator, we were just focused on high schoolers. It was right after COVID, so it's kind of a lot of it was virtual, kind of hard to get into schools. But in my time, we were getting calls probably weekly from middle school principals, middle school guidance counselors saying, please come in and talk about this. And as some of you said, like, yeah, it needs to be in the middle school. Absolutely, it does. It does. And we're even talking about going into elementary school. I don't know if you all are familiar with Miss Rhonda Fleming. She's been doing it for over 30 years. She started the educational facilitator program back in in the late 80s. And she was in elementary schools as well. So that's what we're trying to get back to. So you'll see a lot in this presentation. I'm going to go through it kind of rapidly just for time's sake, but I will hone in on some key points of how it affects African-American, all teens, but definitely marginalized demographic with your LGBTQ plus demographic and African-American females. Okay, I'll share my screen real quick. Can everybody see that? Good to go?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, I'll get rolling here. And then whenever it's time for me to stop, please just jump in and tell me to stop because I don't want to take up anybody's time. This is just, I'll get past this. Here's the definition. This is what we call partner violence, dating violence, or domestic violence. Any type of IPV, intimate partner violence, is a pattern of coercive behavior used by one person to gain power and control over another in an intimate relationship. It's a pattern of coercive behavior. And I nailed that down because sometimes, what I'll talk about here, some people may have done it once, not knowing. But if you're using anything to coerce behavior or power and control, then it comes into intimate partner violence, dating violence, domestic violence. Difference is dating violence and domestic violence, it's under one roof, and domestic violence, the couple's usually living together. And also with domestic violence, it could not just be the intimate partner, but it could be other family members within that household as well. We can't forget about that. Okay. And also I can send this out to you all, this presentation, so you have that as well, because I will be going through it kind of more, at a more rapid pace than I would usually do just for time. But here it is. Here's the statistics. I have some more information later on in our talk about what the statistics are. But right now it's 1 in 3 adolescents in the U.S. As a victim of physical, sexual, or emotional or verbal abuse. And this is dating. This is teenagers. On average, 20 people per minute. And this is not only teenagers, this is everyone. So 20 people per minute. So I go in, I tell teens, if you got a 45-minute class, that's over 900 people just in that 45 minutes that have been, that have gone to seek help for physical abuse. Now, let's understand that all the statistics that I share or we talk about, that's what's reported. All right, so the statistics are probably going to be higher. Understand that's what's reported. These are the types of abuse, and I'm going to be going through all of these briefly. But these are the types of abuse that we recognize at the Women's Center and Shelter. I spend a lot of time on digital just because of who I'm talking to, and the digital abuse is starting to trump everything when it comes to teens and dating violence. Physical abuse, when we think of domestic violence, dating violence, this is pretty much what we think about. The hitting, the physical aspect of it. So hitting, punching, hair pulling, all of that is what's done to the person. And what I usually say is that the physical abuse is horrible. But the emotional abuse that all of these types of abuse lead up to, that's the real trauma. That's what really hurts. So like a black eye or broken bone, it will heal, but it causes emotional and physical distress, and the abuser will use this for power and control, right? Verbal abuse, you see that a lot in teen dating violence. It's about verbal abuse, bullying, threats, yelling, cursing. And understand when I talk to teens about teen dating violence, whether you're in elementary school, middle school, or high school, you have to understand what they are seeing at home. Okay, they're usually not intimidating, but copying what's going on at home, what they see their mom's boyfriend, their dad do, and how they talk to their mom, or vice versa. Okay, so when I'm talking about this, I talk to the teenagers like, hey, a teenage girl may not be bothered by threats or being put down or anything. She may think that that is love because that's how her father talks to her mom. And her mom always says, I love you to her dad. So in her mind, that is what love is. All right. And that's a key point when we're talking to teens, that we got to point that out. And what they see on TV, what they hear in rap videos or in music in general, in movies, it's all in our society, and it's all a cycle. And they will end on digital and IG and social media as well. This is where I get to the mental and emotional abuse about dating violence, domestic violence. It's mind games, put down accusations, blaming, humiliation, all these things. I talk about gaslighting. If you don't know what gaslighting is, that is, it's a new term. I wouldn't say new, but it's starting to be used a lot more. Basically, the abuser is making the victim feel crazy. Prime example is I used to work with a coworker, and her boyfriend, they lived in New York City. She would lock the door every night. He would unlock that door in the morning before she got up, and then blame her for not locking the door, making her feel crazy like she didn't do it. Or if someone hits, if the abuser belittles the victim, then the victim says the story, and then the abuser's like, I don't do that. What are you talking about? That's just joking. I'm joking. So you're making you're making the victim feel like, are they really there, or are they crazy? Again, emotional abuse. I like to read this. Emotional abuse, it all did but destroy me as a person. I didn't even realize it. It was abuse because it wasn't physical. It was the mental abuse that wore me away like an eraser removing a pencil mark on a piece of paper. It never really goes away. It fades it away. But traces of it are left, and I live with those traces every day. So we have all have erased something off a piece of paper, and it really doesn't go away. That is a true illustration of what mental and emotional abuse is about. When we're talking about the LGBTQ plus community, so you're talking about using wrong pronouns, threatening to out, denying a partner's gender identity. Those things go into the mental and emotional abuse, and which can lead to physical abuse and ultimately death. And we see that too much in these situations. The sexual abuse, when we talk about domestic abuse, dating abuse, this has to be said. The first word that comes to is rape, but it's unwanted touching, cheating, manipulating to have sex. That goes a long way, and especially in our younger generation where it's just about sex. That is what's being posterized all over social media. So the pressure for victims or young females to have sex, and even for young boys to have sex from their peers, it's high. The pressure is so heavy on these on these young people, just from all the outlets and all the media that's going on in our world today. So we always talk about sexual abuse, whether it's in elementary school or middle school. We think they may not be having sex, but hey, it's out there. It's out there. Digital abuse is huge when we're talking to this demographic. All right. I bring up, I'm sorry, somebody say something? Oh. Doxing, if you don't know what doxing is, that is if the abuser has the victim's address, phone number, posting that on the internet for everyone to see. So the abuser could break up with the victim, post that information, and tell all their friends, or post something on social media. Hey, she did this to me. Berate her, send her, egg her house, send text messages, all of that. I mean, that is what doxing is. We got to talk about public sexting and publishing nude photos. Just heard a story about teenagers using Snapchat, and they're sending anyone or females that they find pictures of their genitals. Unsolicited, they don't know these people, but that is what's happening on Snapchat in the younger generation right now. Stalking, so I just had this conversation. Stalking, when we get older, you're allowed to drive, so you can, follow the person to their workplace, where they're at. But in the younger generation, it's about location, finding location on their cell phones. Stalking, give me your passcode, let me see your phone, taking the phone. That is stalking when we talk about in the teen dating violence arena. Bringing unwanted gifts. Do we see that a lot? Maybe. Teens may not have money, but if the teen keeps asking their parents, can I have money to do this, to do this, to do that, hopefully their parents are raising some questions like, why are you buying a $500 necklace for a girl in 7th grade that you only like? So it's stuff like that we're talking about when we talk about stalking and teen dating violence. I go over the cycle of abuse. I tell it like this. When we're all been in middle school, you have a crush, let's say your boyfriend and girlfriend. I walk her to her locker. I don't get off the phone. Hey, you get off the phone. No, you get off the phone. No, you get off the phone first. So everything is great. And then maybe a couple of days, couple of weeks, I see my girlfriend talking to another guy, and they could be talking about schoolwork, but I get mad, I get pissed off, and let's say I give her the silent treatment. I don't talk to her for 3 days. After I find out it was innocent, then I buy her a teddy bear, and then I smoosh her over a little bit. Everything is okay. So now we're back into the second honeymoon phase until something else happens. And so this time, instead of me giving the silent treatment, this time I push her. So now it's getting physical. Then I feel bad about it. Now I get her some kind of ring, some kind of jewelry, all right, to have her forgive me. And then now it's something else. And that cycle of violence will continue to go on and go on. And if the victim doesn't get out, it will lead to physical abuse and death at some point. Now understand, there is adults that have been in the cycle of violence relationship for over 30, 40, 50 years. And we have seen that come into our shelter. Always, here's the biggest question for teens. Well, why don't you just leave? Why don't they leave? There's plenty of fish in the sea. Well, here's the reasons why they don't leave. They may be lack self-confidence, may need that boyfriend or girlfriend. They may need that. They love them. They feel that they love them. That's their support system because they don't have it at home. I won't go through all of these, but these are the things of why people don't leave abusive relationships. I always say, it doesn't matter how much money you make, what you look like, what your gender is. Domestic violence, partner violence happens in all walks of life. Does not matter. And it could look the same. It could be more economic. It could be more financial abuse as you get into the higher tiers of people making 6 digits, but the violence is still there. The abuse is still there. I'll go over this, but I like to point out, if you look at the yellow, that's just heterosexual. Pretty much that's all females and male students. When you look in the red, that's the marginalized demographic. And as you can see, Black students are higher. And then when we go down to the blue, as you can see, the LGBTQ plus demographic is almost 3 times as high as heterosexual students. And I have more information on that later on in this webinar if we want to discuss that. But that right there is a snapshot of what LGBTQ plus students go through. When we talk about trans individuals as well, it's even higher. Effective witnessing, this, when we talk about how do we fix this, where is it coming from? It's coming from home. It's coming from home. This is the lack of knowledge or the lack of parenting from the for these teenagers, or it's what these teenagers see at home. I don't know if you can read that, but yeah, this, I'm not going to go through that just for time, but 40 to 60 of children witnessing IPV require some kind of interventions. So you see it's a cycle. It's a cycle. All right. This is the most important to me, how DV affects African-American women. You can see 4 out of 10 Black women experience physical violence. Black women also experience significantly higher rates of psychological abuse. Sexual violence affects Black women at higher rates. Black women face particularly high risk of being killed at the hands of an abuser. What's sad is, as you can see, 9 out of 10 Black females know their abusers, and it's probably the percentage of Black on Black crime. It's going to, Black woman is, I forget what the percentage is, but it's very high that they are being killed by another Black individual. And that's what's sad. It's Black men killing Black women in domestic violence. Oh, I'm sorry. Here it is. 92% were intraracial. That means Black men committing abuse against Black women. As you can see, with statistics like these, this in the Health Project, this is what they're saying the #1 health issue of Black women is domestic violence. Supporting others, always be supportive. I will always say, you have to always, I tell teens and I'll tell anyone, when you go to support someone, you always have to be safety first. You have to be safe yourself. The most dangerous time for anyone to leave a violent relationship is right when they left. Is there when they think about leaving or right when they leave? Because why? The abuser is losing power and control. They're losing power and control. So we say, we tell the friends or the ones supporting, do not contact the abuser. Understand it's the victim's choice to leave. You cannot make the victim leave. You cannot push her to leave. We say the victim knows their abuser the best. So if I'm going to give advice to someone like, oh, you should leave. No, that's not, you should go here. They know that's not safe. They know that's not safe. So when you're supporting others, listen to them and be there for support. Give them these resources. You can always use us, all right? Women's Center and Shelter. If they're under 18, you can have a family member call with them. But these are our texts. You can text us, hotline. Are You Safe app is old. We have a Bright Sky app now. We used to use it for teens, but they're saying it's not really for teen usage. So I'm on a mission to look for other apps for teenagers, because that's how they express themselves. That's where they get help, is through phones now. So I think it's important to have an app for them. Loveisrespect.org, great resource for anything. Scarletteen.com, and then if you need anything, you got the National Teen Dating Abuse Hotline, and then you can just text Love Is. Those are the resources we share. Also with using Women's Center and Shelter. I just want to share this real quick. I'm almost finished. STDs amongst African Americans. Here it is. And when we talk about teen dating violence, this is what can come from that. It's not just the violence itself, it's what follows that. All right. HIV, sexual transmitted diseases, are at all-time highs, and especially in the African American community. Like I said, just because I'm crunched on time, I won't elaborate on this. But as you can see, and I can send my PowerPoint to you all as well. But these numbers are they're staggering. They're staggering. Try to move this. So just in summary, it's important to mention again the environment that the youth live in. So when we talk about preventions, it's it goes deeper. It's on higher levels with prevention. We can help the kids themselves. We can give them all the information that we can, but ultimately it comes like who are they looking up to? Who are they looking for role models? And if we don't have African American male role models for these young men, African American women role models for these young women, it's hard because they're just going right back into the environment where they have learned these toxic relationship values. So now we'll speak on that a little bit more, but as you can see, this is where it's at. Like for some college students, pregnancy prevention is at the forefront of graduating, creating financial success. So it not only leads to teen dating violence, but it leads into college as well. And that's a whole different topic that we can talk about as far as college students and sexual assault on campuses. Does anybody, and this is what I share too, I would go over this with healthy relationships, what it looks like. In a healthy relationship, this is what you want in a healthy relationship. Unhealthy relationships, so you would say your red flags, what you're looking for in that, and if you don't, if it's unhealthy. Does anybody have any questions for me?
We have one question in the chat, Matthew. First of all, thank you. I know, at least for me, this was absolutely mind-blowing. These are the kind of statistics that are both heartbreaking, but also some of this you think you know until you actually see it in black and white. So thank you so much.
I know it's hard. It's a lot to take in, and you will leave here and be like, damn, yeah. Until you see it, until you're in it, you don't know how really in depth this problem is.
For sure. I mean, just by a show of hands for folks, who was surprised by that 1 in 3 statistic of adolescents who have been in abusive relationships? I know I definitely was. I would not have imagined that the number would be so high. So once again, thank you. We have, yes, Eva, we will definitely share the slides. So Tanya says, if we know a young woman who has recently disclosed abuse that occurred in a relationship she's no longer in, what do you recommend as a first step or resource to help her begin to heal? Oh, you're muted, Matthew.
Ms. Lorraine, you can jump in if you want. Yeah, the first step is finding those resources. Whether if you go to a guidance counselor within the school, guidance counselors, you can get a good guidance counselor, you can get a guidance counselor that doesn't care. If you don't have that, then reach out to WCS. There, you can go online. There's tons of, I mean, I just went online, earlier this morning to look up some more information and research on what I was going to present about and the questions that were given. And there's tons of research. To every website you'll go on, you'll have flashes of where you can get help. That is the good thing, is you want to get that victim or that person or that female, you want to get them to understand why they were in that relationship, and get them to recognize the red flags and why they may be yearn for that. Oh, I like bad boys. Well, why do you like bad boys? What is it about a bad boy and them teaching or treating you a certain way that you like? And as soon as they understand that, oh, maybe that's what my mom does, or maybe Nicki Minaj likes bad boys and that's how it's taught. So if they can understand why, then I think that that'll help them. And these resources will help them understand why.
Thank you. We have a question here about what we can do more specifically, but I want to get to that next because there were a few more questions, Matthew, from your presentation that I had. There were two screens. One you had about mental and emotional abuse, and then one you had, of course, about verbal abuse. Now, there is some overlap, but they are indeed not the same. Can you just point out for us more specifically, how do these forms of abuse differ, verbal and mental/emotional?
So I wouldn't say, I can understand, like, from the outside, it looks different. With the verbal, it's gonna lead back to emotional. All right. Like I said, all of those types of abuse lead back to emotional and mental abuse. So if you're using verbal to put down, to bully, all that is trying to lessen the self-confidence into that victim. And by doing that, then I gain, as the victim, as the abuser, more power and control. And the more power and control I have, the more emotional and mental power and control I have over that victim. So when you're using put downs and you're using, oh, you're not good enough, or just like and I don't mean to be vulgar, but in some relationships, you'll hear like the man or the male refers to the female as bitch. Hey, bitch. Now, in some cases, like, oh no, that's how we talk to each other. But really, like, you're saying that you are categorized the person you love or you're in a relationship as a bitch. Those are the types of verbal stuff, or saying that you're not anything, you're just like your mom. Like, all of that is just to tear down that person emotionally. So now I can gain more of that power over that individual. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's a really helpful frame. And I think especially for the advocates in the audience who are working directly with young people, that what we seem to be talking about more generally, no matter what kind of road it takes to get there, the destination is always power and control.
Control, absolutely. It's
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Lorraine.
I wanted to add too to this, that at least in the court system, like verbal could be words that are abusive in the sense that they make you afraid that you're going to be hurt. So it might matter in a protection from abuse case if you were threatened, right? Words alone, like verbal abuse could be threatening and intimidating and considered stalking. Emotional abuse, what Matthew referred to earlier, is most damaging sometimes to people, but that might not directly get you into a court case or something. It might be just very derogatory put downs, like your, comments on your physical, how you look and how you act, and, so that sort of thing. But that's what a lot of our clients tell us is most damaging. So, that may not get you into court and get you a court order. Verbal abuse might do that, but emotional abuse not, but very, very, impactful in terms of trauma on victims.
Awesome. Thanks, Lorraine.
Thank you for that. Lorraine, stay with us for a second. Please, Amy, if you can keep Lorraine spotlighted, because I do want to dig deeper into this LGBTQIA component. I know, Matthew, you said we just kind of scratched the surface. So those numbers that are like 3 times the rate, what is the thinking behind that? Especially when you said the highest rate would be of trans girls. Where is that coming from?
I think we should pass this back to Matthew on the numbers. I mean, I see where this ends up in court, but Matthew, do you want to talk a little bit more about the numbers in this area?
Yeah, I'm trying to find because I just had this. I pulled this up. Oh, you know what? I got it. I'm gonna share my screen again,
Thank you.
and let me see. So, yeah, here. So I just found this, and this is pretty good. Can everybody see that?
Yes,
It's coming up. Okay. So I just found this, and what it comes back to is our society. All right. It's the fear of people being different of you, and we don't know as a society, we don't know how to engage people being different. And then when you look at how society is viewing the LGBTQ demographic, it just it it spills into youth. It spills in because again, what are these youth hearing their parents talk about the LGBTQ plus demographic during dinner or watching TV, or how is that young male that's a bully hearing his father talk about individuals in the queer community? So again, when we talk about like the numbers are just they're astronomical, but overall in the trans individuals are they are I hate to use the word preyed on, but they are preyed on the most by abusers because in our society they are looked upon as almost the bottom of the totem pole. And if you're African American and trans, if you're African American, in our community, um, being gay is not accepted. It's hard to be accepted. And then being a trans African American, oh man, it's this demographic just goes through so much. Um, I don't know if I have a definitive answer for why that is. I just know it is, and if anybody can jump in on that, that's what we are trying to combat here, and especially when I go out to an outreach, especially in high schools, is like, hey, this demographic needs our help, and we have to understand they are very vulnerable. If you look at, not even bisexual individuals are at higher risk and are more victimized than just a regular or just someone who identifies as being lesbian or gay. Bisexuals, why that is, I don't have a definitive answer for that. I wish I could. But if I just scroll down, like I was going to highlight some of the stuff that are bolded in here. 24% of youth who reported having same-sex romantic sexual relationships, either psychological abuse or physical dating violence. Why that is, I don't understand. Although how I look at it is that's our society, because you see it in our movies, you see it on social media happening. It's sad, but that is the world we live in. As you can see in this shorter paragraph, it's been 43% compared to 29% heterosexual. So you're talking about an almost double in the LGBTQ plus demographic. I wish I had the answer for you, but I don't. And as you can see, if we go down, transgender youth are especially at risk. Report the highest rates of physical dating violence at 88, almost 90%. Cyber dating abuse.
The one thing as part of the LGBTQ community that comes to me is also because of the discrimination that's present intracommunally, especially. Too many people who are trans and queer are forced to be in the shadows, and that starts young.
Yes,
So
yes,
they are not having open relationships, and whatever's
right.
done in the dark is a lot easier for abuse to be pervasive. It sounds like, Matthew.
Wow. That is a great point, and thank you for sharing that. I think that's spot on. I think that is spot on because what's done in the dark is more easily taken advantage or cause more harm in the dark because who's going to believe you? They're not going to believe because now it becomes systematic. Okay. Because now we got to understand if that trans individual goes into court saying, they assaulted me, and let's be honest, look at who we got: white lawyers, white judges, white prosecutors. And if you're an African American man, trans man, how is that being looked upon? So we're fighting, they're not only fighting being African American, being gay, but they're also fighting systematic systems as well that don't look at them as equals as well. So thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, Matthew. A lot of people are asking for this link. So when you have a
I
chance,
will. Yep.
drop that. But before we
Will
go
do.
to the next spoken word piece, we don't have a lot of time, but Nicole, please jump in here. I saw your hand up.
Oh, sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole Molinaro, President and CEO for Women's Center and Shelter. I had another meeting until 2:30. I'm so sorry to have missed the beginning of this discussion. It sounds like it's been really great. And actually, y'all got to what I was going to say, which is really, I think it's what Matt said earlier about the intentional predatory nature of those who use abuse and violence. Really, that preying on anybody who's vulnerable can really greatly impact, as we know, especially the trans community who are have such a heightened risk for violence in general in the world. But I feel like you've already covered that. That's all I was just trying to jump in and say. But thank you so much.
So good. Thank you. Absolutely. And also, I would say some of these ideas that very predatory nature is flipped on its head, and part of the discrimination is to believe that trans people are out preying upon straight people to trick them, right? And so then when they are victimized, they are seldom believed. So thank you for that, Nicole. That's very helpful. Amy, can you please play the next spoken word piece for us? Let's hear what our young people have to say about this.
Man, I'm so freaking tired. I don't want to hear the lies. I don't want to see the bruises. I don't want to feel the rage. I'm hurt and I'm so, so lonely.
I'm hurt and I'm so, so lonely.
Interpartner violence, silence young girls with no guidance. As my eyes widen, I begin to hear sirens, sirens, sirens.
Marriage is tied to the hip. Who would have thought our love would end like this? I tried to dismiss, but it's you that I miss. Our love was too good to be true. I wish I would have been seen the real you. Never had a clue. My mind's going crazy like a zoo. All that I've been through, I still would have chose you. But luckily I grew and learned to subdue. So when they ask who, there's nothing to review.
51% of black women are murdered from intimate partner violence. I wonder how many of my sisters live in silence. Black women make up 14% of the population in the United States. Who would have thought this would be our fate? There's no debate that can negate the violence that we face. You use my face as an escape from your pain. You swear you would change and restrain, but I still managed to obtain this bruise. Look at my eye and this busted lip. Who could have predicted this flip? Yeah, you don't have no gun, but I felt to unclip. And I wonder how you equipped the strategy to make me feel like this. I'm quenching the thirst to no longer accept this hurt.
Teen dating violence no more.
That was amazing. It's always so good to hear from our girls. Thank you, Matthew. So I want to turn it over to Nicole and Catherine if she is still with us. I know she had to run to court because we do want to hear about what is happening currently in Allegheny County, not just for youth, but for adults as well, as far as just raising awareness in a project to help address intimate partner violence.
Sure, I would be happy to talk about that, but I believe that Lorraine Bittner and Janice Dean were planning to do so and prepared a presentation. So,
Well,
Right in.
actually, Nicole, we didn't we are prepared to talk, but Janice had to leave.
oh, okay,
So she is no longer on, but
okay. Do you want me to give the overall summary of everything, Lorraine, or do you want to do that part, or?
let me start and then you jump
Okay,
in because
great.
you were very active in this, but I would say, everything you just heard from Matthew and the discussion and your own amazing girls is overwhelming in terms of the volume of the violence. And in Allegheny County, people have really tried to address this in a lot of different ways over the last, I've been around for 40 years in the justice system, but there's a pocket here. You have one agency trying to do something here. Women's Center and Shelter has been around for 40 years, but you'll get an effort in, one police department will develop a special project, then another group in the juvenile court will have a special project. But, it's been very piecemeal. And even wonderful advocacy groups such as your own, there's limits in resources and funding. And so it just, because of the volume of the problem, there were some folks that came together in 2018 and they, a couple foundations funded a report, a countywide domestic violence assessment, and it was done by the National Urban Institute. And to make a long story short, it took about 2 years. They used focus groups. They studied data from the courts, from agencies, from CYF, from juvenile court. They looked at the schools. They looked at a lot of information, and they came up with recommendations. And one of the big things they said was, you have collaboration in your county, you have coordination, but it's not at the top level. Like, you're not getting the buy-in from the top, which would make a big difference in your county. So there was an effort to develop, and they had other recommendations, but that was one of the main ones. The other was that it would really help to review the fatality, to really study what's happening in Allegheny County with your intimate partner violence fatalities and what can we learn from that. And so, Nicole, this is where you could jump in, because I think after that, some of the foundations, but with Nicole's leadership and some other folks' leadership, a whole new high-level reform initiative was developed, and it includes not just the traditional justice system people or, nonprofits. It's community members. It's healthcare. It's Gwen's Girls. It's a lot of different people coming together. So, Nicole, do you want to talk about that and what some of the priorities were?
Sure. Oh, sure. Happy to do so. Yeah. So when we all came together, the Department of Human Services very quickly got on board with helping with the leadership, and the mayor and the county executive were very excited to offer kind of the honorary leadership of this. And then Aaron Dalton from the Department of Human Services, and at the time, President Judge Kim Clark, were also very much on board and very excited to be the chairs for what we call the IPV Reform Initiative, so Intimate Partner Violence Reform Initiative. And we, about a year and a half now, established our goals. And we set our goals for the first year, knowing that it was pretty aggressive goals, right, that we wanted to accomplish, because this group really wants to make change within the various systems that impact survivors and those who use violence. So, and then over the last year, we've worked in a variety of ways. So we have the IPV leadership team, we have a task force, and then we have working groups. And some of the working groups meet on a weekly basis. So there is a lot of work being done among all of these different collaborative folks, from the courts to the district attorney's office to community groups to medical professionals, et cetera. And really what we've accomplished, just to be brief about it, because I know it's already 2:51, what we've really accomplished focuses in a couple different areas, including, as Lorraine just mentioned, the fatality review. So we've done along with, being guided, I should say, with consultants from the John Jay School of Criminal Justice, have done a 5-year fatality retrospective of IPV-related homicides over the last 5 years, specifically in Allegheny County. And And the goal, of course, as Lori mentioned, is really to be able to inform our future work in all of these different systems by learning from, the tragedies. And from there, we actually were able to isolate what we believe are high risk factors for those who use abuse, and then work on contacting the survivors who are their partners or ex-partners, to see if they're interested in working in a really intense way, not just individually, which we already do, of course, with survivors, but in a way that works with the systems that might be able to positively impact them. So that might include reaching out to the Fugitive Task Force if there's somebody who's on the run, and they're, we want to make sure that those connections are being made, right? It could include the courts. It could include, other providers. So we want to make sure that their immediate safety is met, but then also these other system level issues are being worked on. So we've worked on that, and that's a pretty intense initiative that Lorraine and some of our other folks are involved with on a weekly basis. We've already also done systems mapping, and I shouldn't say we, because that was really the county, but the initiative has done systems mapping to see where the experience of survivors, and again, those who use abuse, going through the court system can be improved. And one of our goals for the next year is to really act on some of those recommendations. And then there's been an IPV in the healthcare community work group that's been working on, let's make the connection between healthcare providers and the courts and community groups, because right now everybody in this regard is kind of functioning on their own in some silos, and we know that working together will better serve those who are experiencing violence and those who are perpetrating violence. So we've been continuing, that work has really just gotten started. We'll be continuing that into year 2. And then also we have been working, and this is some work that Janice Dean, Kathy Elliott has, we've only had one meeting so far, but we've really are looking to reach out to youth, to children and youth who might be experiencing violence and abuse. So that's where we are right now, trying to figure out the best ways to be able to reach youth. And so I think that's one of the reasons that Kathy really wanted us to, Dr. Elliott really wanted for us to, talk with you today, to bring you up to date, because I think that we'll probably be hoping for everybody's input as we move forward with this work. So I'm sure I missed some stuff. Lorraine, what did I miss?
No. I do want to mention that, tying back when Nicole mentioned the fatality review, the 5-year, this lines up exactly with the statistics we talked about earlier, because in the Allegheny County fatality review, which included 45 intimate partner violence homicides, 37% of the victims were Black women. Yet again, it goes right back to the statistics we talked about earlier. I mean, it's not just national, it's local. So, and it, but
right.
That's a lot of what the work now is actually, what is the data? Let's not just have a sense of it, let's track it, let's count it, let's actively be involved. And I think what I'm excited about with the high-risk team that Nicole mentioned is that we try to reach out to the victims and ask what they're looking for too. And we don't want the pressure on a victim for what happens in a court system. But if a victim tells us that the perpetrator in their case has mental health problems or needs something, this isn't just about criminal justice sanctions. It's about how to make the violence stop, whatever it'll take. And maybe it's going to the Veterans Intervention Group Matt mentioned. Maybe it's getting a dual help through an alcohol treatment program plus a mental health treatment program. But what's it going to take to make things better in the future? How can we keep victims safe? And so it's a bigger picture than let's just lock somebody up. So that's what I think is really exciting about the whole project.
Yeah, I agree. And, at the forefront of all of our work is really knowing how much more impacted African-American women are, African-American men as perpetrators, and knowing that it's systemic racism, that it's racist policies, that it's racist everything, that, the societal structures that for so long have impacted our society is really the cause of this. And so we know this, And that is so important as we move forward to be able to figure out how to best help and serve both survivors as well as, again, those who are using abuse.
We need a part two. We need a part two.
Happy to.
I have because we haven't even really gotten to perpetrators yet, especially when they are young people and how they too may be victims of abuse. And then they begin to replicate that cycle at a very young age. For those of us who work with young people, this is not about demonizing certain people writ large. It's about how can we help and intervene early, right?
Exactly. And that's why we try, as much as we can to use the person first language of those who use abuse. It gets difficult in presentations and trainings for ease of language, but we want to make sure that, we're not vilifying those who use abuse, because they, we know that they are where they are because of trauma in their past. And, if we're vilifying them, we're not helping survivors either, because these are folks that oftentimes, even if they're not with, they've had love for them, or they currently have love, and it's all so complicated and difficult.
And like Lorraine said, so often you just want the abuse to stop.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, we're going to do a round robin of just closing thoughts. It might be a way that we can reach out to you all or something to stay tuned for. But last thoughts, we'll start with you, Matthew.
Last thoughts. We need more people. We need more people to work on this, because this is our future. And the more we're seeing more teen dating violence, listen, I love to have a job, but we're going to need more people in IPV if we do not come together to try to combat this at an earlier age.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole.
Yeah, like Matt said, we all love having jobs, and I think we would all prefer to not have to have these jobs. So more people and more talk, right? More talking about these issues and having really honest talk with everybody that we possibly can, because this is not a private problem. This is a community problem.
Lorraine.
I would just say the forward momentum that we talked about is really one of the most positive things I've seen in a long time. So we have to all keep working together and keep demanding that the resources come to this issue from the top, and that we don't get pushed aside for another problem. So I just think let's maximize the forward motion we have right now. Thank you. Yeah.
And thank you for reminding us that also we have to hold our systems accountable and get that buy-in that you guys are working so hard to be able to gather from the top down. So we have so many resources to share with you all. Melissa's already lit my email up, and so they will for sure. I told you she's the hardest working person in retirement that I know. So we will make sure that you all receive those as well. And I really do hope we are able to have a part 2 to this conversation. Thank you to everybody who was able to join us today. Don't forget, school board hearing is coming up soon. That information is in the chat right now, and we will see you all next time. Also, this webinar will be recorded, or was recorded, and will be sent out. Thank you to our speakers so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.